Welcome again. My name is Brajesh, and today we are going to look at the chapter number 10, the 18th century political reforms. So, this is going to be the last chapter of class 7th history. Then we will move ahead on the next 8th class history book and we will see the different chapters. Prior to that, in this particular chapter, it will cover the important states which emerged in the 18th century. So it will provide you a base for the when you will cover the modern India. So try to understand it in briefly. Okay, so because not the all of the details have been provided about these states. However, comprehensive or more precisely smaller details which are really important, such as the who was these people or the kings or the people who were working under the Mughal emperors, so how they started become the particular independent ruler instead of the Samans or the Mansabdars. So let us understand and start the chapter. So this particular map has been provided that earlier how the consolidated power of the Mughals were there, then how it got disintegrated in the first half of the 18th century or the beginning or the at the end of the 17th century. So during the first half of the 18th century, how the boundaries of the Mughal Empire were reshaped by the emergence of a number of independent states. So if you look at this particular map, so it has provided the six at the top in the northwestern part, then somewhere near the Delhi Jats are there, and if you will move ahead at the eastern part, then we will look at northeastern part, then Awadh is there, okay, then Malwa in the central part, and in the west Gujarat is there, then Bengal, okay, then Marathas are there, and the Hyderabad. So these were these states, they started to exercise their power. Okay, so we will understand that how it all disintegrated and how these emerged as a prominent power. So move ahead. So by 1765, the British had successfully grabbed the major chunk of the territory in the eastern India. So it is referring to the eastern part. So look at here. So all these pink areas, northern Sarkars and the part of the Bengal has been captured by the Britishers. Okay, so we understand that how Britishers came to India. They came to India for the trading purposes, but they understood the internal political situation of the Indian subcontinent and became the ruler ultimately. So political conditions in the 18th century, India changed quite dramatically. So we just looked at how these people came, and they once they understood that these people are not integrated, they used it against the different states and emerged the successful or the power which could not be defeated by these smaller states. In the chapter what we will read, we will talk about from the period from 1707 to when the Aurangzeb died, okay, till the third battle of the Panipat. So let us move ahead. So the crisis of the empire and the later Mughals. So let me provide you with the information that the Mughals are divided into two. We can say that the earlier Mughal till Aurangzeb are called as the Greater Mughals, and the all the Mughals which came after the Aurangzeb are called as the later Mughals. Okay, so from Babur, Humayun, Akbar, Shahjahan, Jahangir, and then Aurangzeb. All these are the counted as the Greater Mughals, and later on all those Mughals who came after the Aurangzeb are known as called as the later Mughals. Remember this. So Aurangzeb had depleted the military and the financial resources of his empire by fighting a long war in Deccan. So in the previous chapter we have already seen that how he was emphasizing, the Aurangzeb was emphasizing to cover or control the Deccan part, which is also called as the Deccan ulcer of Aurangzeb. Okay, so it became increasingly difficult for the later Mughal or emperor to keep check on the power of the Mansabdars. How it became the difficult? So governors, all those subadars often control the offices, revenue and military administration, diwani and faujdari as well. So what happened that the periodic remission of the revenue to the capital declined, okay, and the peasant and the jamidar rebellion in many parts of the north and western India added to these problems. So what was happening? Try to understand. that these people who were working as the Subadar and the Mansabdar, so once the centralized power became weak, they tried to rise in the power, okay, and they tried to control the all those areas which were earlier in their control as the Subadar or the Mansabdar. Rather than what they started to doing, they started to try to control all these areas and started to rule. Okay, so and apart from this, the exchequer was not getting the sufficient money to run the all the events successfully, which the greater Mughals were able, but the later Mughals were not able. And these situations emerged right after the Aurangzeb demise, and from Aurangzeb time also these characteristics developed. Okay, because the large number of distribution of the Jagir created a huge problem for these people. So the people, peasant and the Jamidar rebellion in many parts of the northern and western India added to these problems. When the peasants and the Jamidar will rebel, then definitely the king or the ruler is not going to receive any contribution from their end. Okay, and when they will not receive any type of monetary support, then how emphasizedly these people would be able to rule, because they need to pay salary to the army, and they also need to distribute the jagirs and different things, but they were not able to do this efficiently. Hence this also created a problem for them. And what was happening, that because of all these problems, what rulers were doing, they started to tax heavily. Hence what is happening, that in rebel to this, once again they came into the rebel like that we are not going to pay a huge amount of tax. Okay, and most of the time the nobles who were there and the subedars and the jagirdars who were there, they also utilized those people against the rulers. So the Mughal emperor after Aurangzeb were unable to arrest the gradual shifting of political and economical authority into the hands of the provincial governors. So we have already understood that how these people were convincing all those people who were in working under them, okay, or they were under their control. Okay, so the local chieftain and the other groups rise in the prominence as well. So now it is talking about the little bit information about the rich harvests and empty coffers, but it is not important for us. We will move ahead and look at the whatever the important characteristics developed, and because of that these situations arise. Okay, hence they also help in the disintegration of this particular dynasty or the particular empire. So the Nadir Shah sacked and they plundered the Delhi in 1739 and took away immense amount of the wealth. So Delhi became so fragile and weak that Nadir Shah came to the India, and not only he came to the India but also looted huge wealth. Okay, so it also broke the backbone of financially completely broke the backbone of these rulers. Okay, and later on, what happens, that after the retreat of Nadir Shah, Ahmad Shah Abdali came to the India, who invaded North Indian 5 times between 1748 to 1761. So you understand that how these people or the ruler of the Delhi became so weak and fragile that anybody who was coming from the northwestern part, they were not able to handle them or they were not able to defeat them. Earlier, it was not the case. There were the stuff like there were the governors which were appointed by these Mughals, who were capable enough to defeat the people who were invading from the northwestern part. But this time all these weak characteristic came into the in front, and these people also came to know that the India is becoming weak, so they continuously attacked the India. So let us move ahead. The nobles, they were divided into two major groups or factions. They are called as the Iranis and the Toranis, the noble of Turkish descent. So when they were divided, hence what they were doing, that they were also trying to get the chance to become become the prominent or to get some important roles in this particular time when the centralized tendency was becoming weak. So nobles tried to capture the power. Okay, so this always we have already understood in the previous times also, that whenever this centralized tendency becomes weak, and all the people who works as the feudal, because feudalistic it is not to be correct to call the feudal system, because feudal system was not that prominent in India, which is a European concept. However, but there was the Samants were there, Jamidars were there. So what they used to do, that these whenever they got the opportunity, they tried to become the ruler of those particular area which they were handling on the behalf of the earlier centralized power. Okay, so always try to understand that how these people use these particular situations. So possible humiliation came when the two Mughal emperors. So the names are important. Farooqi Shah, who ruled from 1730 to 1719, and Alamgir II, who ruled from 1754 to 59, were assassinated. So two rulers were assassinated, Farooq Shah and Alamgir too. So these became like something that anyone, these nobles could play these rulers of the Mughal Sultanate or the period of Mughal time, that earlier these tendencies were not there, because the nobles know that these people who are ruling the Delhi are so capable and powerful that they will be executed by them. So there was a threat in their hearts. But what was happening, as they became weak and fragile, so they also got the opportunity, and rather than having the fear, they got so powerful that they colluded with the powerful people and executed the kings or the rulers himself. So Farooq Shah and the Alamgir were assassinated, and two others like Ahmad Shah, who ruled from 48 to 1754, and Shah Alam II 59 to 1860, were blinded by their nobles. So understand that how they were getting the power, and how they were, there was no chance that they were now fearing to any power. Okay, so now they understood completely that now they can play these people very easily. So emergence of the new states. With the decline in the authority of the Mughal emperors, the governor of the large provinces, Subadars and the great Jamidars, consolidated their authority in different parts of the subcontinent, and hence they proclaimed themselves in the different part as the ruler. So what is trying to tell, that the broadly speaking, the states of the 18th century can be divided into three overlapping groups. So understand these three groups, it will become really important as the base for the that how the later development will occur in the 19th century and subsequent centuries in India. So the states that were first, it is talking about the states that were old Mughal provinces like Awadh, Bengal and Hyderabad. Although extremely powerful and quite independent, the rulers of these states did not break their formal ties with the Mughal emperor. And there are the second type of states, the states that had enjoyed considerable independence under the Mughals as the Watan Jagirs. These included several Rajput principalities. So we have already understood that whenever earlier these Rajputs used to have a great battles and the fights with these Mughals, and whenever they were subdued, what the Akbar and the other Mughal rulers did, that they gave them opportunity to rule their areas, but rather than their Jagirs, they gave them as the Watan Jagir. Okay, and there was the third type of states. The last group included the state under the control of Marathas, Sikhs, and the other like the Jats. They were the different size and had seized the independence from the Mughals after a long drawn armed struggle. So we will see that how these people were fighting at the different parts of the India, and how they carved the different states. Okay, once the particular Mughal empire got the fragile or became weak. Okay, so we will look at them as well. So old Mughal province, now it is talking about the old Mughal provinces. So first, Sadat Khan, who was ruling in the Awadh. Murshid Quli Khan became the ruler of Bengal, and Asaf Jahan became the ruler of Hyderabad. Okay, so all these three had the occupied high mansabdari position and enjoyed the trust and confidence of the emperor, because they were the powerful ruler, and they were the trustworthy of the Mughals. So Asaf Jahan and the Murshid Quli had held a Jat rank of the 7,000 each, while the Sadat Khan Jat was 6,000. So Asaf Jahan and Murshid Quli. So these two important information. Remember this. Asaf Jahan, Murshid Quli Khan had the Jat rank of 7,000, whereas the Sadat Khan, okay, had the Jat rank of 6,000. Okay. So first, let us talk about the Hyderabad. So Nizam ul Mulk, which was the title of Asaf Jahan, who established the dynasty of Asaf Jahan dynasty. So Nizam ul Mulk, aka Asaf Jahan, the founder of the Hyderabad state, 1724 to 1748. He was entrusted first with the governorship of the Awadh, later given the charge of the Deccan. So first he was given the opportunity to govern the Awadh, rather, but later on what was done that he was given the charge of the Deccan. So as a Mughal governor of the Deccan province during 1722, Asaf Jahan had already gained the control its political and financial administration. Okay, so he gathered the power in the hand and became the actual ruler of that region. So what was happening? So we have already understood that once they became the governor of any particular state, what they used to do, they used to gain the power and the trust of the common people. And once they got everything such as the financial and the administration control, so after having the administrative or the financial control, they used to proclaim themselves as the ruler. Okay, and people also used to accept them with very ease. So he appointed the Mansabdar and granted the Jagirs. He was still servant of the Mughals. So this is an important characteristic to understand that how they were gradually trying to proclaim themselves as the ruler. He was still a servant of the Mughal emperor. He ruled quite independently without seeking any direction from the Delhi or facing any interference. So like the Delhi was never interfering in his work, okay, and they were accepting it as that the Asaf Jahan, whatever he is doing correct. Okay, the state of Hyderabad was constantly engaged in a struggle against Maratha to the west, and with the independent Telugu warrior chief Naikas of the plateau. Okay, so he was in the contest with the different powers in the different sections of the India to get the control. Why? Because he wanted to have the control of the rich textile producing area of the Coromandel coast in the east, which was checked by the Britishers, who became the powerful in those particular areas by that time. Okay, so try to understand or remember this particular trait as well. Let us move ahead and understand about the Awadh. So first, the title Burhan ul Mulk. So this was the title of Sadat Khan. He was given the title of Burhan ul Mulk. Sadat Khan appointed the Subedar of Awadh in 1722 and founded a state. So Awadh was a prosperous region controlling the rich alluvial Ganga plain in the main trade route between the North India and the Bengal. Okay, so Burhan Mulk also held a combined office of Subedari, Diwani and Faujdari. So all these three offices were under his control: Subedari, Diwani and Faujdari. So now we understand that when a particular person is holding these important positions, so understand that how powerful he must have become in that particular area by that time, and people must have put all the faith in that particular person. Okay, so what he did, so he was responsible for managing the political, financial, military affairs of the provinces of the Awadh. He also reduced the size of Jagirs and appointed his own loyal servants to vacant positions. So there was always a threat that if the people who are the loyalists of the centralized power, then they may raise in the, or they may create or they may cause some type of revolt, and they may create a problem for the ruler. Okay, so what they used to do, they used to have their own loyal people and appointed them and given them as the big jagirs. Okay, though the size of the jagirs was reduced. Okay, so he seized a number of Rajput jamidaris and agriculturally fertile lands of the Afghan of Rohilkhands. The state dependent on the local bankers. So this was the important characteristic of the Awadh, and we will also see the similar characteristic in the Bengal as well. So try to pay attention. The state dependent on the local bankers, Mahajans for loans. It sold the right to collect tax to the highest bidder. So what they started doing, to in order to get the maximum money out of the limited land, what they started to doing, they started to have some type of bidding process. Okay, so they used to provide these tax collection rights to the person who used to have the highest bidding on those particular lands. So these revenue farmers And what was they in the medieval term? How they used to call them? Ijaradars. Ijaradar means revenue farmer. Agreed to pay the state a fixed sum of money. Okay. In turn, the revenue farmer were given the considerable freedom in assessment and collection of the taxes. So, once a particular person understand, let me just provide you some context. For this particular land, there are four people who are going to bid, and a person who has called the highest bid. For an example, if three of them has gave the bid of 70, 80 or 90 lakhs, then if anyone is willing to give the 100 lakhs or the 1 crore, then the king, what he will do, that he will simply provide this particular land to that particular person who is giving the highest amount. Okay, so this was the type of uh, things which was called as the Izaradars. Okay, in terms what used to happen, that they were given the considerable power to earn the freedom to have the collection of the taxes. Okay, let us move ahead. Now we will talk about the Bengal. Bengal gradually broke away from the Mughal control under the Murshid Qali Khan. So remember the name of this person, Murshid Qali Khan. So who was appointed as the Naib? He was not the Subedar. Remember this. Who was Naib? Naib, deputy to the governor of the province. Naib was the deputy to the governor of that province. Never a formal Subedar, Murshid Qali Khan very quickly seized all the powers and went with the that office of governor. So what he did, that he was very shrewd, and he understood the situation very quickly. Since Bengal was not accessible easily by for the Mughals, becoming the centralized tendency, and the Bengal was quite far, and we have already seen that there was always a communication gap between the Bengal and Delhi. So he used this particular situation when these states start to disintegrate. So he became the governor instead of Naib. Okay, in effort to reduce the Mughal influence in the Bengal, he transferred all the Mughal Jagirs to Odisha and ordered a major reassessment of the revenues of the Bengal. So revenue was collected in cash with great strictness from all Jamidar. So he also emphasized enough on this collecting the taxes and the zamidars. What he did, that revenue was collected in cash, so it provided him an ease of not only accessing or providing the salary, okay, but also provided a huge money to the this particular ruler. Okay, so those unable to pay were forced to sell their lands to large jamidars. So this type of characteristic started developing. So the close connection to the between the state and the Bengals noticeable in Hyderabad and Awadh as well. So we have already seen that how Hyderabad and Awadh, and later on the Bengal as well, we are seeing this particular thing. Okay, so it was evident in Bengal under the rule of Alivardi Khan, who ruled from 1740 to 1756. During his reign, what happened, that the banking house of the Jagat Seth became extremely prosperous. Okay, so Jagat Seth was a prominent banker of Bengal, which also had these particular kingdom, which was established by the Murshid Ali Khan, later on ruled by the Alivardi Khan. So first, just give me one moment. Let me correct it. Okay. So first, now we will talk about the different characteristics. First, though many of the largest states were established by the erstwhile Mughal nobles, but they were highly suspicious of some of the administrative system they had inherited, in particular the Jagidari system. Second, their method of tax collection was very different. So we are seeing that how they started collecting these revenue in cash, and Ijaradar system was invented. Okay, and they used to provide the land to the highest bidder. The practice of Ijaradar, thoroughly disapproved by the Mughals, spread all over India in the 18th century. Initially, this practice was never practiced by the Mughals, but later on, what happened, when this particular state started to disintegrate, and all those states who are coming out of the after the disintegration, they started to doing these practices. Okay, the third common feature in all these regional states was their emerging relationship with the rich bankers. So they were having some sort of nexus with all these merchants and the bankers. Okay, if anyone is not able to pay the taxes, then these rich jamidar used to buy the lands of the poor people. So these people lent money to the revenue farmers and received land as the security and collected tax from these lands through their own agents. Okay, so it was a very oppressive and repressive system, okay, which was not good for any state. However, it used to provide huge money because these people used to pay the money in the bid. Okay, so at the left hand side, it is providing some important information. So let us first understand that. So here, this particular paragraph, first we will look at this particular box. So many Rajput rulers had accepted the suzerainty of the Mughals, but Mewar was the only Rajput state which defied the Mughal authority. Rana Pratap ascended the throne at Mewar in 1572 with Udaipur and large part of Mewar under his control. A series of envoys were sent to the Rana to persuade him to accept the Mughal suzerainty, but he stood his ground and he always defied it. Okay, so now it is trying to explain the concept of Vatan Jagis. So many Rajput kings served under the Mughals. They were permitted to enjoy the considerable autonomy in their Vatan Jagis. So we have already understood that what was the Vatan Jagis. All those lands which they had as a ruler, once they were subdued, were given them as the Vatan Jagir instead of the Jagir. So the 18th century, these rulers now attempted to extend their control over the adjacent region. Okay, so Raja Ajit Singh of Jodhpur held a governorship of the Gujarat, and Savai Raja Jai Singh of Amir was the governor of Malwa. So these Rajput rulers also held very prominent offices. Okay, and governorship of different parts, which has been provided as an information in this particular paragraph. So these offices were renewed by the Emperor Jahandar Shah in 1713. So what he was trying to do, that when these particular states or the Mughal Empire started to disintegrate, so what they did, they tried to have some sort of understanding with these Rajput kings, so that they should not be standing as in revolt against the Mughal rule. Okay, so he was trying to please them. So the Nagaur was the conquered and the annexed to the house of Jodhpur, while the Amir seized large portion of Bundi. Savai Raja Jai Singh founded his new capital at Jaipur and was given the Subedari of Agra in 1722. So Raja Jai Singh, he not only founded the capital of Jaipur, but new capital at Jaipur, and was given the Subedari of Agra in 1722. So Maratha campaign in Rajasthan from 1740 put severe pressure on these principalities and checked their further expansion, because the Marathas also started to exercise their power and they also started to become very powerful. Okay, hence these all fights were going on parallelly. So some of the important development which was done by the Savai Raja Jai Singh. Savai Jai Singh, the ruler of Amir, constructed 5 astronomical observatories. So remember these observatories. First is in Delhi, second in Jaipur, then Ujjain, then Mathura and Varanasi. So there were 5 observatories. Remember this. Okay, so these observatories known as the Jantar Mantar, and they held the various instruments to study the heavenly bodies. Okay, it means the space and the universe. Okay, so remember these places which we have already taught. Now it is talking about the Sikhs. Since we have already read little bit information about the Sikhs, but let us understand that how and what was happening in the 18th century. So several battles were fought by the Guru Gobind Singh against the Rajput and the Mughal rulers, both before the and after the institution of Khalsa in 1699. After his death in 1708, the Khalsa rose in revolt against the Mughal authority under the Banda Bahadur's leadership. So declared their sovereign rule by striking coins in the name of Guru Nanak and Guru Gobind Singh. So remember this, Banda Bahadur, what he did, that he declared their sovereign rule by striking coins. So this was the one of the methods that how a particular state used to show that they have now their own domain and their own rule. Okay, and they used to strike the coins. So the coin was struck in the name of Guru Nanak and Guru Gobind Singh. Remember these two prominent personalities, Guru Nanak and Guru Gobind Singh. And who did that? Banda Bahadur. And established their own administration between Satluj and Jamuna. So Banda Bahadur was captured in 1715, executed in 1760. Who executed him? It was done by the Farooq Shah. Okay, on the order of Farooq Shah, it was done. So the Sikh organized themselves into a number of bands called as the Jathas and the later on Misl. Okay, so their combined forces were known as the Grand Army or Dal Khalsa. Remember this. So all these terms which I am referring becomes important because these terms can be directly asked that what is the meaning of Misl, okay, or what are the Jathas. The entire body used to meet at the Amritsar at the time of Baishakhi and Delhi, and to take the collective decision known as the resolution of Guru, okay, or which also used to call as the Gurumats. A system called Raki was introduced, offering protection to cultivators on the payment of tax of 20% to the producer. So remember that in terms of sales, what is the meaning of Raki? So it was a sort of protection given to the cultivators in exchange of 20% of the produce. Okay, remember this. So Guru Gobind Singh had inspired the Khalsa with the belief that they destined to rule. Okay, so this Raj Karega Khalsa. Okay, so this was the line which was given by Guru Gobind Singh. So the Khalsa declared their sovereignty rule by the striking their own coins again in 1765. So we have already seen that how Banda Bahadur also did the same thing. Okay, and later on in 1765 it was done again. So the coin bore the same inscription as the one orders issued by the Khalsa in the time of Banda Bahadur. At the right hand first we will understand about the little bit information about the Shivaji. So towards the end of the 17th century, a powerful state started emerging in Deccan under the leadership of Shivaji, which finally led to the establishment of Maratha state. Shivaji was born to Shahji and Jijabai. Remember this? Mother and father's name Shahji and Jijabai. Where he was born? At Shivneri in 1630. Okay, he was born at Shivneri in 1630. Under the guidance of his mother and his guardian Dada, Kondev, Shivaji embarked on the career of conquest at a young age. The occupation of Javli made him the undisputed leader of the Mawala Highlands, which was paved the way for further expansion. His exploits against the forces of Bijapur and the Mughals made him the legendary figures. He often resorted the guerrilla warfare. What is the guerrilla warfare? Well, they used to hide in the terrains of mountain terrains, and and they used to take the army of different such as Mughals or the neighboring principalities which were continuously fight with the Marathas. They used to take them by surprise. So this is called as the Maratha. This is called as the guerrilla warfare. Remember this. Okay, against his opponent by introducing an efficient administrative system supported by a revenue collection method based on Chauth and Sardeshmukhi. He laid the foundation of a strong Maratha state. So we will also understand about the Chauth and Sardeshmukhi. So what are these and how it was used and how it also helped the Marathas to grow into a big political power. So the Sikh territories in the late 18th century extended from Indus to Jamuna. Okay, Maharaja Ranjit Singh reunited these groups and established his capital at the Lahore in 1799. Remember this. So he made the capital to Lahore in 1799. Okay, so now talking about the Marathas. Shivaji, who ruled, he was from 1627 to 1680, carved out a stable kingdom with the support of powerful warrior families. Okay, Deshmukhs, so group of highly mobile peasant pastoralists. Okay, so these pastoralists are also called as the Kunbis, provided the backbone of the Maratha army. So they used to serve in these particular armies. Okay, so after Shivaji's death, efficient power in the Maratha state was wielded by a family of Chitpavan Brahmans who served Shivaji's successor as the Peshwas. So who were the Peshwas? Chitpavan Brahmans, later on called as the Peshwas. What is the meaning of Peshwa? A principal minister. So Pune became the capital of Maratha kingdom. So remember this. So what was the capital of Maratha kingdom? Pune became the capital of Maratha kingdom. Apart from this, Chitpavan Brahmans called as the Peshwas. In term, they are also the meaning is the principal ministers. Okay, so let us understand that at the right hand side or on the left hand side, an important information has been given about the Bajirao. Bajirao, first also known as the Bajirao Ballal, was the son of the Peshwa Balaji Vishwanath. He was a great Maratha general who is credited to have expanded the Maratha kingdom to the beyond Vindhyas and known for his military campaigns against the Malwa, Bundelkhand, Gujarat and the Portuguese. Okay, so remember the name Bajirao I, also known as Bajirao Ballal. So he was the son of Peshwa Balaji Vishwanath. So between 1720 to 1761, Maratha Empire expanded. So Malwa, Gujarat was seized from the Mughals by 1720. By the 1730s, the Maratha king was recognized as the overlord of the entire Deccan Peninsula. So this was the biggest success of these Marathas. So he possessed the right to collect or levy the Chauth and Sardeshmukhi in the entire region. Okay, so we'll understand and read this particular paragraph. So after raiding Delhi in 1737, the frontiers of Maratha dominance extended rapidly. So into the Rajasthan, Punjab in the north, into Bengal, Odisha, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Telugu. Okay, so they expanded. So military campaigns also made other rulers hostile towards the Marathas, because other rulers did not like this, because whenever they were started to win all these areas, so the neighboring powers or the principalities always remained very hostile and apprehensive for the attacks of the Marathas. Okay, as a result, they were not inclined to support the Marathas during the third battle of Panipat. So we will see that why the third battle of Panipat in 1761 is important, and what were the reasons behind the defeat of Marathas. So when we will cover the modern India, then we will look at the characteristics of this particular battle. So what are the Chauth and Sardeshmukhi? So at the left hand side in the box, Chauth and Sardeshmukhi information or definition has been provided. So 25% of the land revenue claimed by the Jamidars in the Deccan, this was collected by the Marathas. It used to call as the Chauth. Chauth, so we can also call as the 1/4 of the produce. Okay, and the Sardeshmukhi. Sardeshmukhi was the 9 or 10% of the land revenue paid to the head revenue collector in the Deccan. Okay, so Maratha chiefs or the Sardars like the Sindhyas of Gwalior, Gaikwad of Baroda, and the Bhonsle of Nagpur, the resources to raise the powerful armies, because they were collecting the huge amount from the different regions. Okay, so they were not only able to have the good amount of money from all these areas, but they were also able to conquest the other principalities and the neighboring state as well. Okay, so Ujjain expanded under the Sindhyas patronage and the Indore under the Holkars. So let us move ahead. So these are just the information. So whenever there are important things which we need to remember, I will notify. Though I have underlined, and these becomes really important, always try to go through all these details. Okay. It will provide you more context and the pace. So the silk produced in the Chanderi region now found a new outlet in Pune, the Maratha capital. Okay, so Burhanpur, which had earlier practiced in the trade between the Agra and Surat, now expanded in the hinterland to include the Pune, Nagpur in the south, and Lucknow and the Allahabad in the east. Because what was happening, that these Marathas started including or started having these states within them. Okay, after the conquest. So the Jats consolidated their power during the late 17th and 18th centuries under their leader Churaman. They acquired control over the territories situated to the west of city of Delhi. And by the 1680, they had begun the dominating the region between the two imperial cities, Delhi and Agra. So remember the name Churaman. Okay. For a while, they became a virtual custodian of the city of Agra. So they became so powerful that they virtually became the custodian of city of Agra. They controlled it. Okay. So Jats were prosperous agriculturists, and the towns like the Panipat, Ballabgarh became the important trading centers. The areas dominated by them. So under Surajmal, so to another name apart from the Churaman, Surajmal, the kingdom of Bharatpur emerged as the strongest state under Surajmal. When Nadir Shah attacked Delhi in 1703, many of cities notable took refuge there. So understand that how powerful they became. That Nadir Shah, when Nadir Shah was attacking Delhi, the people who were flooding from Delhi, they took the shelter at these places of Jat kingdom. Okay, and Surajmal and the all these people of Jat kingdom provided the shelter to these people who fled from Delhi. Remember this. The power at the right hand side, we are looking at this particular information. The power of Jats reached its zenith under Surajmal, who consolidated the Jat state at Bharatpur in present-day Rajasthan during 1756 to 1763. The areas under the political control of Surajmal broadly included the part of modern eastern Rajasthan, southern Haryana, western Uttar Pradesh, and Delhi. Surajmal built a number of forts and the palaces, and famous Lohagarh fort in the Bharatpur is regarded as the one of the strongest fort built in this particular region. So it has provided depicted the image of Lohagarh fort. So remember that it was constructed under the rule of Surajmal. Okay, so we have discussed the different ruler of the Jat dynasty as well. So while the Bharatpur fort was built in fairly traditional style, at Dik, Jats built an elaborate garden place combining the style seen at the Amber and Agra. So they were also taking the different styles when they were constructing the different architectures. So they included all these different styles as well. Okay. So now it is talking about the French Revolution. So we will look at the French Revolution, which happened between 1789 to 1784. So whereas the state system of the 18th century India, the common people did not enjoy the right of participating affairs of their governments. Okay, because there was kingdoms who were ruling, hence there was no right. Okay, so in the Western world, this was the situation until the late 18th century, the American 76 to 81. The French Revolution changed the social political privileges enjoyed by the aristocrats. How? During the French Revolution, the middle class, peasants and the artisans fought against the special rights and enjoyed by the clergy and the nobility. So they believed that no group in society should have the privilege based on birth. Rather, the people's social position must depend on merit. Okay, so it was very clear cut understanding that people should not be given the importance on their birth, rather than it should be dependent on people's social position. Okay, on their merit. Okay, the philosophers of the French Revolution suggested that there be equal laws and opportunities for all. They also held that the authorities of the government should come from the people who must possess the right of the participate in its affairs, and the movements such as the French and American Revolution gradually transferred the subject into citizenship. So the idea of citizenship, nation state of democratic rights took root in the India from the late 19th century. So we also see that in our constitution as well, these ideas have been inculcated. Okay, so why the French Revolution or American revolutions are important for Indian perspective as well. When we will cover the modern India, then in detail we will understand that how these particular revolutions influence the Indian independence movement as well. Okay, so in this particular chapter we have understood very important facts, and we have seen different states who emerged out of the disintegrating centralized system of Mughal Empire. Okay, so try to remember all these important names and what type of characteristics getting developed in that time. Okay, so I will see you in the next chapters. If you have not liked and subscribed this channel, then please like and subscribe the channel and also enable the notification. Share these initiatives with your friends and fellow aspirants. Till then, bye.